Do you own a Honda Pioneer 1006 and you're tired of the breeze blowing through the cab? Well, SuperATV's got you covered with our full convertible cab enclosure doors, and today we're going to show you how to get them installed. What's up guys, my name's Braden, welcome back to my garage, and today we're going to be showing you how to install SuperATV's full convertible cab enclosure doors on this Honda Pioneer 1006. Here's the tools, so let's get right to it. Alright, so before you all get started, I highly recommend that you remove all the contents of the packaging and get it all laid out. As you can see behind us, we've got all of our doors laid out on our table. We've got some sat around the rest of the shop, all of our components laid out. I highly recommend you do that before you get started on this install. So the first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and remove the doors from the machine. We're gonna have 4 bolts up here, and then we're gonna remove the 2 bolts securing the striker to the frame. All right, so now you're gonna grab 3 of your tube clamps out of your kit. We are only gonna be using 2 of them, and you will too if you have one of SuperATV's racks installed. You'll utilize the threads in this clamp here. If not, you would want to place a clamp in this location as well as down here and up here. We're going to start with this one up here. And it is compatible with this rack. You may just have to slide it in to the bracket a little bit. That's okay, it's not going to hurt anything. So it should sit just like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and start my hardware back into the clamp. Place another clamp down here like so. Then we're gonna grab our passenger rear door bracket and we're gonna line it up and reposition our clamps as needed, get all of our hardware started in it, and then fully tighten our clamps. All right, so now we're gonna grab our passenger rear bracket. We're gonna line it up with the clamps. You're gonna grab the M6 hardware. It is just gonna be the black nitride coated 4mm Allens that are in the kit. I'm gonna start at the top. And this is the thing that you all are going to find out about the cab enclosures. They aren't hard to install. There's just a lot of adjustment throughout the entire process. You may adjust the door 3 times before you get it exactly how you want it. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten up our clamps. Then we can go ahead and remove all our hardware because we're going to need to put foam on the back side of our bracket. All right, so now we're gonna grab our foam and we're just gonna go in between our clamps. Just foam the cage up. Once you get to this clamp, just cut off. Go down through here. We have a strap on ours, so we're just gonna cut right above the strap and then on the bottom of the strap. We don't wanna cover that thing up. If we ever need to remove it, just make it kind of a pain if we had to try to peel the foam off too. So go ahead and just push on this pretty hard here just to make sure. Then we could reinstall our bracket, but you don't necessarily want to fully tighten the hardware yet. We may have some minor adjustments that we need to make. All right, so now we're gonna grab our lower mount brackets. This is gonna install to where the factory striker was installed, and then it's gonna line up with these 2 slotted holes here. You just wanna make sure when you install this, you install it like this so that the opening part of the bend is facing towards the front of the machine. Slide it in, and we are going to use the M8 Allen headed screws. Grab a bolt, line it up. We're going to use these with a M8 flat washer. And also you're going to make sure that the slotted hole side of the bracket is facing the slotted hole outer bracket here. The holes that are just straight cut are going to line up with where the striker was factory installed. Now we're gonna grab the passenger side rear bracket. It'll look just like this. We're gonna line these holes up here with this hole and then manipulate our bracket around and to where all 3 of those pieces are lined up together, and then we're gonna start a nut. So I'm just going on the back side. And we are using the M8 Allens for this with a flat washer. So now you're gonna grab the M8 Allen headed hardware, the same bolts that we've been using with the flat washer, except this time you're gonna use a nut cap on the back side. That's gonna be item K located in the instructions. And these have a threaded hole into the bracket. So just line it up with the threaded hole. I'm just gonna get these started. All right, now we're gonna take the rear hinge mount for the passenger side and the same hardware that we've been using. We're just gonna run these up by hand. Not fully tightening anything quite yet. All right, so now we're gonna remove the middle cage bolts. All right, so now we're gonna grab the passenger rear striker bracket. You're gonna want it to install just like so. So this side of the bracket's gonna go up against the spacer, and that's where you're gonna put your nut. It's gonna bend down and then drop. So it's gonna be enclosed. You're not gonna be able to see the nut from the outside, so it'll install just like this. We're gonna grab our long 12mm bolts that are included in the kit. Just go ahead and slide those all the way through. Then you're gonna grab the thick spacer that's provided in the kit, slide it onto the bolt threads, and that'll slide up into the channel of the frame. Grab the bracket, line it up with the bolt threads, grab our M12 nylock nuts, go ahead and get them started. And then we're not gonna fully tighten this quite yet, but we are gonna run it up to where it makes contact. That way it'll kind of hold itself in place somewhat. All right, so now we're gonna grab our door, line it up with the door pins. And then you may end up having to loosen the brackets that are pre-installed onto the door in order to get them to sit straight on the hinge pins. At this point, what you're gonna do is adjust this door around to where it fits correctly. If you get this door installed to where it opens and closes nicely, then when you put the upper portion of the door on, everything's just gonna kind of fall into place, everything's gonna line up correctly. Once it's lined up, we're gonna grab our long M6 bolts, drop our hardware through, and then just stick a nut on the bottom. Go ahead and get the nut started. And this is only if you're turning this into a full cab enclosure. If you intend on installing this initially without the upper door on, you just skip this step. All right, we've got it latched, but we do have quite a bit of adjustment that we're gonna need to do. We're gonna need to get this door to go just a little bit forward. That way it lines up correctly. But right now, we're just gonna leave this for the time being. You can snug your hardware up. That way the door's gonna stay in place. I just latched it on the striker. So you're gonna notice that the door's gonna be locked. We tape the keys to the outside of the door. That way you can unlock it, just like that. We're just gonna open this door up all the way, open it slowly, and then just kind of let it go all the way back. And we're gonna apply gasket from here all the way down. Once we get to this point here, we're gonna cut off our excess. All right, so now what we're gonna do is grab our strut. We're gonna attach it here. And then also we're gonna attach it to the door. We'll just need to open our door back up to where we can get it lined up correctly. So it should look just like this. All right, so the next thing you're gonna do is grab your strap. You're gonna hold it like this to where the bottom of the buckle is facing towards the front of the machine. Take the other end of the strap, route it behind the tube in the frame of the door, route it through the hole on the frame, and you're gonna slide it through the bottom loop. What I like to do is just pull on it just a little bit. That way it takes some of the pressure off the strut, and then route it back through and pull it tight. So that's gonna take some of the pressure off the strut. All it's gonna do is just not let the door slam open and try to flex the bracket or anything. All right, so now moving on to the front door, you're gonna grab one of your clamps, just like we used in the rear, take the hardware out of it, and then put it right here in this general location, right above the bolster. I'm just gonna start my hardware in it, just like we did previously. You don't want it tight, because as you know from installing the previous one, you will have to move it around. All right, so it should fit just like this, and you can still move it up and down if need be. There's not a ton of up and down movement because there's this weld right here, and then obviously the bolster, so that's about all the movement you have. We'll just leave it right there for now. All right, so now you're gonna grab the foam and you're gonna start it right here on this edge, and you're gonna route it down all the way to the top of this clamp and then cut off the excess. So we're just gonna go ahead and run this all the way down. You wanna make sure that you have these bolts tightened up here and you have your striker in position, because at this point it's going to cover it up. Run it all the way down here and then we'll just cut off our excess. All right, so now we're gonna grab our front bracket and then our M8 Allens with the flat washer, same hardware we were using in the rear to attach our panel. Line it up with the 2 factory holes in the cage, and then just put a nylock nut on the backside. Now we're gonna grab our M6 Allens with a flat washer. All right, so now we're gonna grab our bracket as well as our M8 Allens with the flat washer. Gonna line up the side that has the non-slotted holes with the inside where the factory striker bracket went. Very similar to the rear on the installation. Get this lined up. Now we're gonna grab our front passenger hinge bracket. It'll look just like so. We're gonna line these 2 holes up here with the 2 threaded holes on the bracket. And we're gonna be using the M8 Allen with the flat washer. Just get these 2 holes lined up and get them started. Then we're gonna line these 2 holes up here on the hinge bracket to the side bracket and then to this bracket here as well. And we are gonna be using the M8 Allen with the flat washer, and then we're gonna put a M8 nylock nut on the back side. Now we're gonna grab the front mounting bracket. We're gonna grab our no slip clip. We're gonna grab part D. This is gonna be our longer M8 Allen in the hardware kit. You're gonna locate this hole right here on the frame. Just take your clip, line it up with that hole. Make sure that the bracket is oriented like this. Go ahead and start the hardware down into the bracket and just thread it into that clip. We'll just get it started. Once we're good and started, we're gonna grab 2 more of our long Allen bolts here. Slide them through. Then just put an M8 nylock nut on the back side of these. All right, now we're gonna grab our upper hinge. We're gonna use the M8 by 20 millimeter Allen here. Just gonna make sure that your hinge is oriented like so, that it's facing towards the rear. We'll get these started. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and remove our bolts. We're gonna have to remove both the bolts. At this point, if you didn't have the rack installed, then all you would do is take the spacer, place it inside the cage here, and then install your striker bracket with the provided hardware. But we are running this front rack, so the bolts that are provided are not gonna be quite long enough. As you can see, these are M12 by 50s. We need 60s, so we're running an M12 by 1.25 by 60 millimeter bolt here. That's gonna go through our front rack and through the cage enough to where we can get a nut on it. Again, and if you're not running the front rack, then you would just take this spacer, install it, put your striker on there, slide the bolt through, put the nut on the back side, and you're good to go. So we're gonna put this here, slide this back down into place. We're gonna grab our bolt. Once again, we sourced this bolt, just an M12 by 1.5. All right, we got that through there. We're just gonna go ahead and take our nuts, get them started. We're not gonna completely tighten it yet. We wanna leave it to where there's still a little bit of adjustability in that striker so we can make any minute adjustments that we may need to make. All right, now we're gonna grab our door, line it up on the hinge pins. Just have to give her a few taparoonies. All right, so now we're gonna install our hinge covers. So with these hinge cover brackets, you're gonna have a front, which is gonna have a lesser bend on it. And then you're gonna have a rear, which is gonna have that sharper bend on it. You're also gonna have a left and a right. Whenever you install this, you need to make sure that it fits the contours of the plastic. right, now we're gonna grab our upper door half, slide it onto our upper hinge pin. We're gonna grab the long bolts that we previously used to attach the upper door to the lower door in the rear. We're gonna open the door up, pop the bolts through, get the nuts on, and then we'll start working on getting the strut attached. All right, so now we're gonna couple the two doors. There we go. All right, so now we're gonna grab our strut, remove the nut from one side of it, just like we did on the rear. Drop the strut in. Then we're gonna attach it to the door. All right, so it should look like this. The strut's gonna be attached to the door and then attached to the bracket. Grab your strap like we did last time. Feed one end through behind the door frame. Slide the other end through the spot on the factory bolster. When you finished attaching your strap, we're gonna start going through and fully adjusting these doors and getting them to where they open and close nicely. And then we'll go ahead and foam over all of our hardware here. That way we know we got a nice seal all the way down through the cab enclosure. All right, so now what you're gonna do is go ahead and remove your mirror out of the packaging. There's gonna be a bracket already attached to it. It's gonna have two 8mm bolts. You just wanna go ahead and remove that and discard the hardware. Then you're gonna pop into your hardware kit. You're gonna have some small M5 hex-headed bolts with the M5 nylock nuts. You're gonna use that to attach the mirror to the door right here. So just install our hardware to the mirror. Just gonna line it up and we'll go to the inside. Get our nuts started. Then fully tighten the hardware. All right, so now what we're gonna do is start right here and we are gonna start applying foam. We're gonna run this foam all the way down to where the strut comes through. We'll cut off the excess there. And we'll pick back up on the bottom of the foam here. And you wanna make sure that you have your door fully adjusted at this point. Before you do that, let's get down here and then we'll cut off the excess. And we'll just go ahead and close the door and make sure we got a good seal. All right, so when it comes to adjusting one of SuperATV's cab enclosure doors, you're gonna have multiple different pieces on the door that's gonna need to be loosened up and tightened depending on what the door's doing. If you're having the door to where it's sagging, it's too low, you're gonna wanna loosen up the hinges and adjust it accordingly. What I like to do just to get started, which this door, we got it all adjusted. What I like to do is grab a hold of the door, lift it up into position and get it to latch on the striker. Once you get it latched on the striker, then you can come out here and start snugging some of these up. And then you'll kind of notice that it's sagged a little bit. You're gonna wanna lift up a touch, past the point of where you think it's gonna be, and then tighten everything down really good and tight. And then just make sure that the striker is hitting square on the latch itself. If it doesn't, it's not gonna close properly and it can cause premature wear on that latch. So we have ours fully adjusted here, and this adjustment can be used, this process can be used for all four of these doors. You just wanna go through and make sure everything's adjusted evenly. One of the most common issues that I see when a customer says they're having issues adjusting one of these cab enclosure doors is that they'll get everything on there and then they'll fully tighten all the hardware immediately and then they can't get anything adjusted. So you wanna make sure that the upper door is tightened down to the lower door, everything's hand tightened, get it latched, go through, snug all the hardware up, and then make minor adjustments. You can make adjustments on the bracket itself, and you can make adjustments on the hinges. You can make adjustments to where the hinge bracket attaches to the door frame. There's a ton of adjustment here. Just leave the door a little bit loose, get it latched, snug everything up, make a final adjustment, and then tighten everything down. So once you have your door fully adjusted, everything's fully tightened down, what you're gonna do is grab the cap nuts out of the hardware kit, and anywhere on the inside of the machine that you can see the threads, you're gonna take a cap nut, thread it on, and then fully tighten it. You wanna make sure that you have everything adjusted and tightened down before you do this though. So We'll just go through, install these on each of them, fully tighten them down, and we're good to go. All right, so now we've got both doors adjusted on the passenger side. We're just gonna repeat all these same steps on the opposite side. Be sure that you follow all the steps, and if you have any questions on which hardware goes where, you can refer to the instructions. It's all laid out nicely. There is quite a bit of hardware in this kit, so just make sure that you're following along closely with the video, putting the right hardware in the right spots, right brackets in the right spot, and we're just gonna repeat these same steps on the opposite side. All right, so once you went through, got all 4 of your doors adjusted, everything's fitting nicely. You've put the nuts on the back side of all of the pieces of thread that are sticking through towards the inside of the machine. That's all there is to it to install SuperATV's convertible cab enclosure doors on this Pioneer 1006. Be sure to check the description below to pick yours up today. And while you're there, drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.